Hi everyone, thank you for coming to my Vulnerably Badass YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about the power of first-hand experience stories. The reason why I wanted to share this topic was because when I visited my husband's hometown, I met great aunt, my husband's father's mother's sister. And so she is an old lady but very active person, and I enjoyed talking with her. And before I met her, I was reading about his hometown on Wikipedia, and I learned there's a library in the town, and the library is a very historical library, and because of the design or the architecture, it's on the list of historical building, U.S. historical building list or something. And it used to be First Baptist Church, and it was built really nicely. I forgot the details again, but like Victorian style or Gothic style. And then it was, as far as I remember, if I remember correctly, it was bought by an entrepreneur in that area, and it was donated as a library. So I was talking about the town and the library to her, and she said, oh yeah, you should definitely visit the library, it's beautiful, it's nice. And then she said, when I was a little girl, I wanted to go in, but I couldn't go inside because of my skin color of skin. And maybe some of you know that my husband is African American, and I was really shocked to hear that. And it's not like I didn't know American history or what happened to African American people. And I read literature, or I took history class from Black perspective when I was studying undergraduate program in San Diego too. And so as my knowledge, something that I read or something that I taught in classroom or something that I watch from TV or movies or something that I see from the museum, yes, I know about the knowledge about what happened in US, and also even after civil rights movement, even nowadays, it's a challenge, but hearing about this story, like, oh, I couldn't go in because of my skin color, to the library that we were talking about. And I had very similar experience 2 more times in my life. Maybe if I count more, depending on the degrees, how much shock I got, probably more than 3 times. But the major ones that I want to share today is 3. The library story with African American great aunt, and the very first one was when I was in elementary school, because I'm from Hiroshima. In our elementary school education, projects, we had to interview our grandma or grandpa generations to hear about what they experienced during the wartime, or during the when the atomic bomb was dropped. And in my neighborhood, just 2 or 3 houses next to my house, or the aisle that I had my house, was a little store, not even a convenience store back then because it was in the 70s, but it was a little mom and pop store that had like ice creams and chocolates and like potato chips and drinks. So there was grandma. So I think she was pretty much the oldest person I could think of, and someone that I meet regularly. So I went to talk to her and interview her, what was she doing on the day of August 6th. And then she told me that all the stories, but what impressed me the most, or what was shocking, or what I remember vividly, was she told me that she was sitting next to a window and because of the blast, our neighborhood has a little mountain. So our neighborhood where the bomb was dropped in the middle of the city, I mean, it's kind of far, but not too far. I don't know how many kilometers, but there's a little mountain. So our neighborhood didn't really get big blast, or not completely burnt down. That's why when I was born back in the 70s, we had a kind of like old, I wouldn't call it slum, but slumish, because the houses were really older. And I guess my mom and dad were able to afford these house, without any flushable toilet, or without bathtub or shower. We had to go to public bath. So depending on the property, some rich people had older but several houses, and they were renting out, and we rented small house, but which had only 2 rooms. But anyway, so our town the damage wasn't that serious or that bad, also, although it was bad, as if it was in the middle of the town because of the mountain protected our area. But she mentioned that, she was sitting next to a window, and then the window broke, and all the glass pieces were on, this side. I don't remember right or left, but one side of her body, and she suffered from that. And I, as an elementary school child, I got so shocked. And I remember going through all these, peace education, or this atomic bomb research in elementary school. I got traumatized very much. But yeah, hearing about this first-hand experience from grandma was so shocking, because we watched videos, and we went to the museum and everything. But hearing from someone, like actually literally hearing the voice, the story, was so shocking. So that was the first one that happened in my life. And the second one that happened in my life was in college time. That's when I was living in San Diego, and that's when I met a lot of South Korean people, and because of my heritage, a lot of people suggest me to learn Korean, and I started learning Korean. And then back then we didn't have YouTube, or we had internet, but not advanced like now. So what I was doing was I was visiting these Korean videotape rental stores, and I was renting some TV programs or movies, maybe not movies, just TV programs, to learn Korean, to expose myself to entertainment and learn Korean. And there was a grandma there who is Korean and speaking Korean. So with my little knowledge of Korean, back then I wasn't fluent, so I was using a little bit of Korean to greet her, and that I want to rent, certain videos. But she looked at my name, and she knows my name is Japanese. So she said, "Nihonjin desu ka? Are you Japanese?" And I was so surprised, like, "Oh, grandma, you can speak Japanese?" And then she said, "Yeah, back in my era, we had to go to Japanese school, and everything was taught in Japanese." And 私たちの時代はね、国民学校で日本語を勉強してたの。話さないといけなかったのよ。So she told me about her first-hand experience of this, colonized Korea, right? You were not allowed to speak the Korean language, but you were forced to learn um, Japanese. And years after that, it was in the 90s, so years after that, even in the US, she still remembers that, and she's still, this Japanese language that was forced on her was still there, so she was still speaking Japanese to me, and that hit me so hard too. Like, wow. Yes, as Korean Japanese, I learned about history of Korea in Japan, and I learned, I read, I watched movies, or although it was limited, but still I had the knowledge. But hearing her and meeting her shocked me. And so these are the three examples that first-hand experience story shocked me, but at the same time, I don't know if it's the right words to use, like inspire, but I don't know what's the word. Maybe not inspire, but just powerful. The influence that gives me. So I was thinking about, what is this influence? What is this that I'm receiving? And I thought, well, all these stories were from women, and but they are the ones who are really very healthy and still engaged in society, very active people. Three people were all, and so I guess in that way, maybe inspiring to me. They went through a lot, but still at their age, they were all old enough to be called grandma, and with this, I don't know, scar or burden or something on their shoulders, but still moving forward. So I think that was the inspiring part for me. Then I was thinking about, okay, so what will I be telling as a grandma in the future? Or not even, before I become a grandma, right? What are the first hand, experience I'm going to talk about? And of course, the experience I'm going through is not as, not, what's the word, heavy or impactful or historical as, civil rights, or atomic bomb or colonialism. But I did have maternity harassment when I was pregnant. I told my employer that I got pregnant, and I was told that the contract will be terminated. Of course, I mean, I'm not supposed to compare or anything, but it's not as, something like being the victim of atomic bomb or discrimination. I mean, racial discrimination, but it's still discrimination. But I hope when I become grandma, and when I talk to another woman, younger woman, oh yeah, back in the days, yeah, I wasn't able to extend my contract, or I was told that the contract will be terminated because I got pregnant. I hope that story, first-hand experience story, will be something like, really? I read about it, and I watched the movie about it, I heard about it from radio or whatever, but it's my first time to hear someone who went through this. So I really hope that it will be like this. Still in Japan or in Korea that I know, if you become pregnant, hard life, hard reality is waiting for many women. But I hope when I become grandma, younger generation women will be surprised, like, wow, that really happened to you. So yeah, and there are many other aspects too, like domestic violence that I experienced as a child, or I don't know, fighting cancer with my son and what I went through at the hospital with the doctors. And I hope these things, you know, these adversities that I went through, you know, when I speak as a grandma, I hope all these things will be an unbelievable things that happened in the past and not anymore. That's something that I thought as I thought about these three women. So thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, and looking forward to, oh wait, I need to ask you too, what were the most influential, impactful, first-hand experience story that you heard in your life? Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, and see you next time.